Good morning, class. Today we'll be discussing Consumer Protection Act 1986. The major definitions we'll be discussing today before going on to the main provisions of the Act. This Act was formulated in 1986 to protect the interest of consumers at large. The first word that needs to be defined in this Act is a consumer, because we're trying to protect a consumer, so we need to know who is a consumer. So consumer is a person who buys any goods. Basically, this definition is divided into two parts. One is for goods and the other one is for services, right? So as far as goods are concerned, who is a consumer? A person who buys those goods for consideration. Now we all know what consideration is because we have already studied the Contract Act 1872, which defines consideration. So consideration is something which is in return. If you're buying a phone and you're paying money, if you're buying a car and you're paying money, so car and money, both of them are consideration. Now the goods should be bought for consideration, but this consideration need not be paid in full. This consideration can either be fully paid, it can be fully promised, or it can be partly paid and partly promised, or it can be under any system of deferred payment. Apart from the person who is buying the goods, it also includes the user of the goods. Now this is important here. Say suppose I buy a smartphone and I gift it to my husband. Now who is a consumer? Both of us are consumers. Why? Because I've bought the goods for consideration and my husband is actually using those goods. So I am a consumer because I have bought the goods, and my husband is a consumer because he is a user of those goods, other than the person who buys the goods. Okay, but does not include a person who obtains such goods for resale or for any commercial purpose. Now this is a sub clause given to this particular definition, that if you're buying the goods for resale or for any commercial purpose, you will not be accounted for as a consumer. Why this thing was added in the Consumer Protection Act? Because this act has simpler procedures. So the lawmakers did not want big business houses to exploit this particular act as becoming consumers. So it is given to small individual consumers who are buying the goods for their individual consumption and not for commercial purpose. Now the next part of this definition of consumer is that of services. So it also includes a person who hires or avails of any services for consideration. Consideration is a must. You need to pay something in return of those services that you're receiving, but the payment need not be full. The same case as it is with goods. So it can be either fully paid or fully promised. It can be partly paid and partly promised, or it can be under any system of deferred payment. Now another word which is very important here is that of a beneficiary, because we don't use a service, we actually derive benefit of that service. So a person who has hired or availed of the service is a consumer, yes, of course, and a person who is actually going to be a beneficiary of that service is also a consumer. Now say suppose I've bought a life insurance policy against my life. So since I have made the payment of the insurance premium, I am a consumer, yes, of course, but the nominee is my son. So who becomes the beneficiary? My son. So he is also a consumer. So in case of my death, he can put up a case as a consumer in the court of law. Again, the consideration in this case also can be either fully paid or fully promised, or it can be in the case of installments. But it does not include a person who buys these goods for a commercial purpose. Now, there's another subclause to this definition, that commercial purpose does not include use by a consumer of goods bought and used by him and services availed by him exclusively for the purposes of earning his livelihood by means of self-employment. The idea was to exclude big business houses from getting the benefits of this simpler procedures of this act. But a person if it seems to be a commercial purpose, but it's not a commercial purpose, he's just generating self-employment for himself, he's not creating employment for hundreds of people, then he will be accounted for a consumer. Say for example, there's a person who has a photocopy machine, and he charges 1 rupee for per photocopy and renders this service to other people. It seems to be a commercial purpose, but it is not. Why? Because we need to focus on this term, which is self-employment. So if he buys a photocopy machine which is not working properly, he will be included in the word consumer, and he has a case against the company from which he has bought that machine. Okay. Now, next word that needs to be defined is complainant. Apart from the consumer, which we have already defined, there are other agencies and individuals who are given the right to file a complaint. Why? Because we needed to broaden the perspective. We needed to broaden the base of the act. If a consumer is not able to file a case, then there are other people who can file a case on his behalf. So the first complainant can be a consumer himself. If he does not file a complaint, then a voluntary consumer association, which is registered under the Companies Act or any other law for the time being in force, can file a complaint. Apart from that, the central government or state government can also be a complainant. If there are more than one consumers who have the same interest, who have the same problem, then they can file a complaint together. And in case of death of a consumer, his legal heir or representative can also file a complaint. So we have discussed the definition of consumer and that of a complainant. Now, on what grounds can a complaint be filed? So we need to define a complaint as well. The first line in the definition of a complaint says that it is an allegation in writing. Writing is very important. It cannot be a verbal communication. You cannot just go and say that I had these many problems against the trader or the service provider. It has to be an allegation in writing by the complainant that any of the cases might appear. The first thing is that an unfair trade practice or a restrictive trade practice has been adopted by the trader or service provider. So if you claim that the trade practice that is adopted by the trader in case of goods and service provider in case of service is either unfair or restrictive, you can file a case in the consumer forum. Next reason that you have is that the goods you are buying they are suffering from one or more defects. Another reason that can be is that the services that you're hiring, they suffer from one or more deficiency. See, the goods can be defective, services cannot be defective. So the right word for services is deficiency. All right. Another reason for which a complaint can be filed is that the trader or service provider has charged a price which is more. Now, more is a subjective term, right? So price in excess of the price. We have 4 reasons here. In any of the 4 reasons, if the price is being charged above than these 4 reasons, you can file a complaint. So first price is which is fixed by the law. So if the price is MSP is given by the law for any particular product and the particular trader or service provider is charging higher than that price, and you have a case against the trader or service provider. If there is a price which is displayed on the goods or any package, which we commonly know as the MRP, that is the maximum retail price, and the trader is charging more than that, then you have a case. Third reason is that the price is displayed in a price list exhibited by the seller or the service provider in his premises. Then again you have a case because he has exhibited, say suppose 10 rupees in the premises and he is charging 12 rupees, and you have a case. And the last reason is that say suppose 2 parties A and B have discussed 500 rupees as the price for a particular product, and at the time of payment the party says that no, now you have to pay 600 rupees. You have a case because why? The price was already decided as 500 rupees. Okay. Now, the reason continues. There is another reason for which you can file a case, that is goods which will be hazardous to life and safety. Now, say suppose a person who is selling geysers or electric iron and it is not ISI approved. That means it is not safe for life and safety of the public or a person who is going to use that particular product. So there you have a complaint. Again, it's not the case only in case of goods. It's not the case that only goods can be hazardous to life and safety. Even services can be hazardous, or they can be likely to be hazardous to life and safety of the public. Say suppose the services of an electrician. If it doesn't work properly, then there can be a short circuit and there can be a loss of life and property. So in any of the above reasons, you can file a complaint. So we have discussed the definition of the word complaint, complainant, and consumer. We have some other definitions to be discussed. We'll be discussing those in the next class, and then we'll move on to the main provisions of the Act. Thank you so much.